Good evening. Good evening. At 6 o'clock, we are going to call the regular city council meeting of the governing body of the city of Blanco to order. Roll call, please. Present.
Mayor Kristen Durham. Councilmember McClellan. Councilmember Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Britfield. Present. Councilmember Devine. Present.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to move on to announcements. The free community ice cream social will be this Saturday, August 13th at Benzel Park from 4 to 6. There will be live music and the event is hosted by the city and the chamber. The Lions Club annual Stuff the Bus school supply drive for Blanco ISD will take place on August 13th from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. They will be set up on the square across from the post office. There will be another human trafficking awareness forum on August 15th at the Old Blanco County Courthouse. The meet and greet will begin at 3:30 with the presentation following at 4 p.m. Blanco ISD students will be starting a new year on August 16th. I would like to wish everyone a successful and wonderful school year. The 90th annual Blanco County Fair and Rodeo will take place August 17th through the 20th. On August 20th, there will be a parade in Johnson City, and the city will be having a parade entry. Don't miss out on the rodeo fun. The chamber will be hosting a contractor's breakfast on August 17th from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. at K&C Supply. Jim of the Hills will be having a blood drive on August 17th from 1 to 6 p.m. A ribbon cutting ceremony for the Blanco River Hotel will be held on August 18th at 4. Blanco Market Days will take place on August 20th from 9 to 4 on the courthouse lawn. Good Sam's Open House Market Day will also take place on August 20th from 10 to 2. The Blanco County Burn ban remains in effect until noon on August 23rd. The Blanco County Friends of the Night Sky will be having another Hill Country Night Sky songwriting contest, and the deadline for entries is September 15th. Additional information can be found on their website. These last few announcements that I'm going to be sharing are very far in advance, but I felt it important to be mentioning, and I will continue to mention them throughout the next few years. On October 14th, 2023, there will be an annular solar eclipse. On April 8th, 2024, there will be a total eclipse. The majority of Blanco County will be in the area of totality. There will be a great possibility that we will have lots of visitors in and out and around our city during these eclipses. Again, I know that these dates are far in advance, but I just want to make sure everybody is aware. That being said, we are going to move on to public comments. And I want to just let everybody know that you have 3 minutes and that the council cannot respond to matters not listed on the agenda until a future meeting. Jonelle Haas.
Thank you. I'm just going to read a letter that I wrote because I think it's real important for this, and I'm going to address the 281 situation. That's the hottest topic in this room right now for all of us. I am the president of Twin Sisters Dance Hall down on 281. There is a lot of historical ranches all along the way in homes. Some of these ranches straight across from the hall, and they've been in that same family for over 200 years. When you see Twin Sisters Mountains, that's part of that ranch. We're in very big jeopardy in this county. Not that we can maybe stop this, what's going on, but I think we all need to reach out. And I will tell you up front that shame on each one of us in this room and in this county for letting it get this far. I will tell you this also. A year ago, I called TxDOT in Austin for Twin Sisters and TxDOT in Johnson City and asked them what the plans were, because we want to put a new sign on the road, but I did not want to invest any money in grants or funding until we knew and have to have it destroyed and moved. At that time, TxDOT said, we just did work on the bridge at 473 and 281. We just enlarged the road some. We have no other plans at this time. That was a year ago. And I am mad. I'm mad at TxDOT because they flat out lied to me. They did not give me plans. And like I said, I called Austin Contact and in Johnson City. And I talked to both of them with a meeting. And that was the response I got. My gut told me otherwise. And that's why we have not put a new sign up there. We did not invest money in that sign. So at this point, I'm just going to read that I'm asking everybody to please get involved. Take a minute or two to make a phone call, email to everybody involved in this. This Texas has one rule, Texas Hill Country, and we are in the middle of it. As stated, TxDOT will be making Highway 281 a super highway from San Antonio to Fort Worth, rerouting I-35 traffic to us. I know I've heard people say, I've been hearing this for 20 years. Well, guess what? I've heard it all my life, and I'm over 20 years old, but it's here now. With that, they'll destroy historic ranches, homes, businesses, increase traffic, a route for more crime, destroy our habitat for wildlife. We'll have more water issues, just to name a few destructive things that'll happen. Historical buildings will be damaged and destroyed, even from vibration of the traffic. We're already seeing that at Twin Sisters. It knocks our windows out when big trucks go down that road. That's how bad it is. The negative list can go on. TxDOT has said they will consider an alternative route, but the city, county, that means us taxpayers, will have to pay for it. That will help downtown Blanco, but not historic Twin Sisters Hall or historic ranches south of Blanco, or help any other issues this highway will bring. I am personally reaching out to please put your political differences away. This is not a liberal. This is not a Republican. This is not a Democrat. This is not a blue or purple thing. This is a Blanco County issue. And we all need to work together. We need to reach out across the aisle and become unified for the sake of this county. And this is our government issue, the chamber. We need to work together and with the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Nipa.
Hello. To Blanco City Council, shame on me for waiting until August 1st, 2022 to really begin looking into what our council has in Blanco's best interest. I began my research and have submitted 6 public information requests as of last week. From those public information requests that have been submitted, I have received nothing. When I am waiting 6 business days for information that should readily be available, I start to look more into the picture of corruption, or that something is being carefully reviewed and redacted. So I start looking on the City of Blanco's website and find that it is outdated with no information that can easily be accessible. I sign up to receive texts and emails for the city's notifications, and I do not get a confirmation. So now I am also putting into my mind lazy, or wow, our city council needs wake-up call. The most important topic for discussion is absolutely the 281 project with TxDOT. I know for a fact that this has been an ongoing issue that has been pushed off until the next meeting. I have also found that we have a committee that the council wants approval on tonight called the 281 Task Force Committee. That is absolutely insane. The council does not need another committee formed on their own behalf to do absolutely nothing with and to be able to vote against the people of Blanco. This is very untrustworthy approach. I know for a fact that our city administrator was presented with a solution to include members of the council and the concerned Blanco citizens together. It was presented as the comprehensive master plan and sent via email on August 6th. If the comprehensive master plan was reviewed, you would see that it would kick off the process by appointment of an updated committee. The council would want a cross-section of the community. If council does not appoint a broad, inclusive committee to benefit the people of Blanco that could possibly lose everything, then you all have made a huge mistake. This should show epistemic arrogance. The confidence in one's knowledge and ability to know becomes excessive. The council's confidence has become arrogant. You are placing yourselves as better knowers in comparison to the city of Blanco and taking for granted that you are in a privileged position. If you want Blanco citizens on your side, then the comprehensive master plan will need to happen. This is the only foreseeable way of joining forces and working together. Working together is the only way to help with what is about to happen in our small town. So it's time for the council to put your arrogance aside. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenneth Welsh.
Good evening. We've all heard the rumors of a 281 bypass for years. Never before has TxDOT been willing to go public with any information about the possibility of a bypass. I want to thank the council for taking the lead on this issue by reaching out to the county and to TxDOT and breaking the ice. Following the public meeting with TxDOT, most in attendance left with the feeling that they did not learn anything, except that there's much more to learn. Since then, emotions in the community are running high with strong feelings on all sides. Unfortunately, nobody has the information needed to be rational and make a positive difference. We each have in our mind what we want and what we don't want. We have time to gather the facts, to learn what we, the citizens, want and what we don't want. There are issues involving financing. TxDOT says they won't do the property acquisition and the city and the county will have to acquire the land. We don't have the money. If we want a bypass, we've got to figure out the funding. There are access issues. Do we want downtown access to be limited to the current 281 at both ends, or do we want additional entrances and exits? Access decisions will impact economic development along the route. Exits may generate gas stations, truck stops, etc. There will be environmental issues during construction and for the life of the bypass. Water runoff, air pollution, wildlife habitat, riparian protection, and noise control are just some of the issues. TxDOT knows about these generally, but we know about the issues in our backyard. There are many legal issues to be addressed. Area economic development beyond the property directly impacted is huge. More subdivisions and people will come. What is the impact on downtown Blanco, and how do we want to prepare for that? There will be impacts all through the county, not just in Blanco. I absolutely support your proposal to establish a task force. At the same time, I urge you to include in the communications, outreach, and engagement strategy a way for the public to provide input into the many aspects of the project. Some people maybe want to contribute to the economic development issues, while others are only concerned about the environmental aspects. Make room for everyone to provide input regarding their concerns. Coach John Wooden has been quoted as saying, when you hurry, you're more apt to make mistakes, but you have to be quick. If you're not quick, you don't get anything done. We have time, but we must move quickly. I thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Kinsler.
Good evening, Mayor Council. First and foremost, I was listening to the comments, and from my perspective, watching your agendas, watching your meetings, I think that this is a busy, a transparent, and inclusive, and a very hardworking volunteer council and hardworking staff. So I commend you on that. You're getting a lot done. I actually, Mayor, had every intention on commenting on new business action item number 2, but it appears that the sponsor is going to ask that that be postponed. So with your permission, I'll just hand a copy of my comments to the sponsor, and I don't need to read them.
That sounds great.
Thank you, Mayor.
We are going to move on to the public hearing. 1, hearing on appeal of vested rights determination, Vapor Genius.
Mayor, council, at this time, we are going to reset the hearing as this item will not be heard tonight. The applicant was not able to make this at this date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to presentations. The first presentation is by Seven Oaks LLC Concept Plan, Matt and Martha Hurden.
Martha Hurden's going to let me do this all by myself, I think. Madam Mayor, Council, thank you for your time this evening. As I said, I'm Matt Hurden. My wife Martha have been enjoyed Blanco now for almost 4 decades. And God willing, good Lord willing, we'll be here for another 4 decades, who knows. But looking back, I was on the first Planning and Zoning Commission years ago with a fellow named Damon Baker. Some of y'all still might remember him. He's still up there on the high hill. But the UDC and the Comprehensive Master Plan stated then, and it's still true today, rooftops and growth are inevitable. And growth, I know, means change, and growth and change creates a fear to some degree, and sometimes it scares even me because it's the unknown. We don't know what it is. But let's take a look at some of the change we've had here in Blanco. Jerry Lindemann's Groceries. Some of y'all remember that. It's not there anymore, but it is Uptown Textile. The Red and White Grocery Store, it's on the south end of the courthouse. It's not there anymore either, but you can go buy antiques at the Cranberries over there. There's a hardware store that was on the north side of the courthouse. I'd go over there and buy plumbing works and stuff like that. But now you got to go in there and you can order your meatloaf sandwich at the Redbud Cafe. Is it time? You just let me know. That's all right. And even the Blanco National Bank, that's not there anymore. Now it's a Texas Regional Bank. Look at Tractor Supply down the road. The point is, all these changes have really been good for Blanco. So, and I kind of like to use an analogy like the Blanco River. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but when it gets down and it gets sluggish, it starts to get, for lack of a better term, unhealthy. And now we know all the property taxes, good Lord, they're shooting through the roof. So for over the last 12 years, or those 4 decades we've been living here, my wife and I knew someday something was going to happen where we'd have to take a look at things and see, okay, what are we going to do now? You know, what are we going to do with the property now? There's been numerous people, because of all this property shooting up and everybody buying land everywhere and putting in all new subdivisions. We've had people come in from close as Marble Falls up here. We had one from Sacramento, California come out and talk to us. They wanted to put in, I forget how many apartments on that place. And we also, of course, we had some from a developer from San Antonio, and then we even had somebody from Schertz, Texas come in. All these people, they wanted to come in and do great and wonderful things, but every time we looked at their plans, for lack of a better word, we'd say those are unacceptable for Blanco. We didn't like those. So some of y'all, I hope all of y'all can remember about last December, we approached the council and we said that we wanted to make an offering of land for a city hall and a city park. So tonight, our presentation this evening, it's a plan of an 18-acre development that will include the city park and the city hall. And I'd just like to see if y'all can use that by using a number of economic development tools to enhance Blanco for all of us for just a little bit. So I think you've got the PowerPoint over there to light it up. And for your reading pleasure, basically, this is a improvement district for the city of Blanco, and the Seven Oaks is what we call it. As this is, again, I'll keep repeating it, this is just a concept plan. And this is the Ag Exempt Plan is titled 25 and 26 in the city of Blanco, and it's been owned by us since 1995. I think some of y'all remember Arlen and Viola Benzol. I had a hard time buying that piece of property from that hard-headed German. He didn't want to come off a nickel on the price, and I bought it for $175,000. I think that was a good buy this day. Next slide, please. So what is Seven Oaks? It's a planned use development. It will include 2+ acres for a city park, which will also, I hope, include a Veterans Memorial. It'll have 1 acre for a planned city hall, and the remaining acreage includes 33 single-family homes, a small retail spaces, and approximately 14 to 20 townhomes. And of course, the project, like everything, would be done in phases, with the first phase being the 33 single-family homes. Next slide, please. What makes Seven Oaks accessible? You have direct access to the city streets, easily accessed by Elm and Mesquite Street. The water and sewer lines, infrastructure for water and sewer lines are already in place on both sides, which is at Mesquite and Elm Streets. It's a great location for us also, but it's also a good location because it has close proximity to the elementary school and the high school. It also has 281 access just on the other side of a block. And of course, right next door, next to the Catholic Church, you have the Blanco State Park. So what's the goal of Seven Oaks? To develop a multi-use property with moderately priced housing, a park for residents to own with pride, walking trails for all to enjoy, a city hall, Blanco can showcase, and a retail space for easy access. The retail space will be little retail stuff like maybe an attorney's office, a barbershop, something to that effect. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over here to my planner, Mr. Philip Wunke. Let you go for it, Philip, and explain to you a little bit about the plat.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Philip Wonke. I'm with Place Designers. We're the land planner in this process. And I just wanted to explain to you a couple of the elements of this plan and where they're located. So we have connectivity road connecting Elm and Mesquite. So for access through the city, we essentially show the city hall to the north, and then right behind it along the creek, the linear park of 2 acres. And then, as he mentioned, the retail to the south, and then as a transitional use, the townhomes can be between that, and then residents to the back. And so 33 lots of residential. We show 20 townhomes, and then about 18,000 square foot of retail in this plan. The arrow you see connecting 281 is just an idea to say that can be an access ability wherever it needs to happen, and if it happens, for City Hall and the development. I think it would be important to have a direct access to City Hall in that case. And so that's why we're showing that as an option or an idea. And that's it. Thank you.
One more slide, Maestro. This legend up here behind you is a direct copy from the city's plat. It shows that Mesquite Street on the west side of the property has 2 water lines that run on it. One is an 8-inch line, the other is a 4-inch line. And on the eastern side of the property, there lies another 8-inch line and a 2-inch line. If you can make it out on that screen, the red X's up there indicate fire hydrants. So utilities and access to the utilities would be a welcoming sight to any developer. Next slide. So What would PID funds, TURDS funds, economic development funds finance? First of all, they would finance your city roads. That'd be a nice thing. Get it? There you go. Secondly, all the utilities and on any of those projects would be paid for also by your, whatever fund you decided to access with. And third, administrative costs in getting this thing off the ground would also be paid for. So where do we go from here? Is the question. Well, the negotiations, I said, they're not binding, but rather a starting point to direct the city administrator and the city attorney to enter into negotiations that an appropriate economic development tool can be presented to the citizens and the council. So with that, I appreciate your time this evening, and if I can, I'll answer any questions for you. But again, as I said in the beginning, this is just a concept plan. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next, we have a presentation by the Blanco Historic Preservation Commission by the Chair, Billie Jean Kutzer.
Madam Mayor, City Council, good evening. Each of you have a booklet in front of you with the presentation. Sorry about that. And what we've been doing. We've had a very busy year this last year, and our one-year goals were the gateway signs to be completed and placed. And as you know, we have a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and the city and us and local citizens, and we're moving forward on that. There was originally a $2,150 deposit made to Andrew Manning of Manning Signs, and we had to refund to start on these several years ago, and that money is being refunded to us, and the check has been sent. At our last meeting, we discussed that these funds should go toward the new Gateway project, as that is what it was intended for. Some of our other one-year goals are social media, Facebook, website is progressing, and Wendy Cambridge, our secretary, has done a great job with Facebook. We're planning on updating survey and inventory and developing criteria, including inventory will be rock walls, rock fences, cisterns, and other structures. A database program has been secured with Texas Historical Commission so we can have a searchable database. We're also working toward Pittsburgh neighborhood and getting a history placard and marker placed. We're working hard to reestablishing a working relationship with the city and the city council, and perhaps have a liaison. And may I say, I think that you, Madam Mayor, you and the current council are doing a fantastic job, and we look forward to working with all of you in the future on our projects. The rock walls we're going to start with the rock wall behind Cranberries and work to establish ownerships, concerns about liability and historical restoration. And we plan on supporting streetscapes. Also, we're working toward having an annual Heritage Day, the first Saturday of February, when the Texas Hill Country Trail Riders come through town. And then May, History Month, I'm working on one big event or several small events focused on history from 1900 to present day, different decades. We are working also with the Historical Commission, Texas Historical Commission, to find a solution to the 281 Superhighway as well. One of our goals, which I'm happy to say has been completed, is the old maroon banners that are currently out for Historic Blanco. We ordered 8 banners with the hardware for 4 and at $1,008. And I'm happy to say that the banners came in yesterday. And Wendy, could you bring them up? In your packets, which for time, you can look at them later. We're also planning on buying, it's going to come up at our next agenda, a 3x5 sign, which there's a picture of, that we can use on displays like pickups and parades, whatever we need to promote the historic in the future. We're working on new historical tour brochures that are being updated, and we hope to have them printed very soon. And with our budget for 2021-22, we purchased the banners, and with the remaining funds in this year's budget, we will use them to buy those two new banners at $90 a piece and get the brochures like these, which you all have one, updated and printed so that we can use them for events and presentations and stuff like that. For our new budget for 22-23, we are asking for $6,800, $500 for supplies, printers, paper, ink, etc., $1,500 for training, $2,000 for markers, and $800 for pamphlets, flyers, and booklets. On our 5-year goals, we are looking, we're ongoing reviewing and applicable revisions for the CGL standards, paint guidelines that have been created and need to be added to the UDC with design guides, looking to revising forms, have a presence on the city Google Docs for beginning to manage photos and documents, etc. We're beginning to identify buildings, structures like rock walls, bridges, cisterns, etc. Objects like trail rides, mile markers, and street lamps, placards, kiosks, and interactive historic district online, and QR codes on the placards or signs so people can learn more. In this developing stage, new Commissioner Ryan Moses is looking to manage it. We also plan to develop and expand online presence, identify and create new historic districts such as churches, and projects will always be in motion and ongoing. That's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just want to thank the commissioners. You guys have just been rocking. This is a ton of work and a lot of progress in organization. So thank you very much for your leadership.
Thank you.
And all the commissioners as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to staff presentations. First, we have City Hall, Mr. Escovy.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council, citizens of Blanco. I'll make it short and sweet. So first item I want to talk about is public safety. We have a couple of items on 4th and Pecan, which is next to Old 300. We've been working with TxDOT, the engineer and myself, and they will restripe the intersection to add the flashing stop signs on both sides of 4th Street. There's been a lot of vehicles that haven't seen it, maybe because of the parking on both sides. And we've considered that an area that we need to really work on, and TxDOT's agreed to do that. Also, as an aside, you may have been seeing some TxDOT work being done. There are people doing striping and other work in the next week or so. Along with that, the city of Blanco, and you'll see this tonight, is looking at an intersection improvement at 3rd and Pecan. That'll be presented by our engineer. Essentially, we're going to create a 3-way stop right in front of City Hall. One of the things that we've noticed is that cars are, even though I would consider this a parking lot, people treat it like, you know, they're zooming on at 30, 35 miles an hour, and then not stopping for people that are backing up. That's creating a hazard. So with minimal effort, we're going to hopefully make 3rd Street and Pecan and 4th Street safer for the citizens. Next. As you know, or maybe don't know, there'll be a TxDOT open house on September 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Blanco High School cafeteria. But the format, my understanding from working with TxDOT before, is there'll be an open house. It won't necessarily be a presentation, but they'll have booths and they'll be there to answer specific questions. we've done it before when I was in Sealy, and it really works well. So you'll have one-on-one with some of the engineers of TxDOT and the people that we're actually working with. I'd like to invite people to look at online. We have the city budget posted. We had 2 meetings, public meetings about the budget. I will say that it was challenging. I think the council worked really hard. We listened to people about the things that they wanted. We'll let you know that it's gotten better over this year. And if you have any questions and you review the budget and you have questions of myself or the council, please, I'd say the public should touch base with us, and if they have any questions, we'll definitely answer the best we can. Focus on code enforcement. So I've used some of the same pictures I have before, but we have a code enforcement person now. You may have seen him. He has a truck. It looks like an old police car. It's the old Tahoe that we had. He's been driving around, getting bandit signs down, pulling down anything that doesn't look right, that doesn't meet the code. Is starting to send letters. If you get a certified letter, then that's probably him asking you to do various things. But we're really looking at, I'm gonna let you know, we're really looking at just meeting the law and really just minimum standards, making sure that things are kept neat. You don't have grass that's a foot taller, just basically tidiness, and really focusing on cleanliness and providing a better aesthetic looking town. Next. And that's really it. The other thing that your council's been working on is looking at ordinances and looking at policies that will help us make better decisions. Looking at PID policies, looking at policies on updating our ordinances and really providing the best service we can for the community. So again, short and sweet. Any questions of staff?
Thank you. We will move on to the police department. Chief Rubin.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We have a lengthy agenda. The numbers, the monthly reports in front of you. The only thing I really want to highlight is, as the mayor pointed out, school starts on Tuesday. So we've been really gearing up for the start of school, start of traffic, start of kids and school buses. So I just want to remind everyone that there'll be more kids on the street, more cars on the street. School zones will be back in effect. And we'll try to have a heavy presence at all the schools as much as we can. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to the consent agenda. The following items may be acted upon in one motion. Item 1, approval of minutes from the July 12th, 2022 budget workshop. 2, approval of minutes from the July 12th, 2022 regular city council meeting and public hearing. 3, approval of resolution 2022 R005 adopting capitalization policy. 4, approval of audit for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021 by Belt Harris Pechek LLP. 5, approval of engagement letter between the City of Blanco and Belt Harris Pechek to perform single audit for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021 at the cost of $16,820. And item 6, approval of the electronic ticket writers for use with municipal court fund view software at a cost of $27,600 to be paid out of the municipal court technology fund. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve items 1 through 6 as logged and presented in the consent agenda.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6. Is there a second? Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to new business. Item 1, consideration, discussion, and take action on adoption of moratorium on any new public improvement districts, PID, until such time as a city council approves a PID policy.
So the reason for this item really is to give council some time to review the PID policy, whether you approve it tonight or next couple of sessions, so that no one can slide in a PID or do anything, and then council, but that won't stop any type of negotiation or any work that we're currently doing. Thanks.
Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt a moratorium on any new public improvement districts until such time as City Council approves a public improvement district policy.
Mayor Pro Tem Barron has moved to approve the adoption of a moratorium on any new public improvement districts until such time as City Council approves a public improvement district policy. Is there a second? Councilmember Smith has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 2, consideration, discussion, and take action on adoption of general policy for the city of Blanco relating to public improvement districts, PID.
I'd like to review the policy with council members if I could. I spent, along with the city administrator, a good bit of time today with our bond person and our finance person to just clarify some of the things. We've already seen this policy before, but there were some open spots on there. I think, first of all, the important thing to know is this is a policy. That means it's a guideline. It has nothing to do with the TERS. It has nothing to do with the 380 agreement. It is a PID policy and a PID policy only. And it serves as guidance, and most of the language in here says it is suggested, it shall be considered. As always, it gives each individual project an opportunity to be evaluated for the council and staff to evaluate each on its own merits. But it does talk about some things that are really important. Nothing has changed in here in that any PID would need to be inside our city limits or in the ETJ agreeing to be annexed. And so we're not looking at entering into a PID with something outside of our city limits. One of the spots that we had open, I'll try to compare this to the old one that we had looked at before, just so you have both. We can kind of go through it and that'll help you see the changes are pretty simple. We didn't know what the question I had is the minimum size for a PID shall be. How big does a PID need to be for it to make sense? And again, the recommendation from our consultants was 10 acres is probably about a minimum that you'd look at to allow development that makes financial sense. So a minimum of 10 acres. There is no maximum. That's going to be considered on a case-by-case basis. That did not change. As we went through, sorry, I get all my 9 gazillion million trillion notes on here. We went through to the next page and we just spelled out, because my question last time we looked at this was, what is a SAP? I didn't know that. It's a service and assessment plan. So we simply spelled that out. The reimbursement for PID costs and expenses had been left open. And again, our question was, what's reasonable? What makes sense? And the recommendation was that it would be an amount not less than $10,000 would be deposited. And that's to cover the city's expenses, city attorney, city engineer, and that an additional, we changed the way the language was written because it was a little confusing, but it says the same thing, that an additional deposit may be required to be deposited by the developer. And you see that red, there was a whole lot more language and it didn't make a lot of sense. So we cleaned it up a little bit and shortened it. But the word additional should be in there in the red. An additional deposit may be required by the developer. If it gets too low, we can decide, staff, council, if more needs to go in. There were a few places in here that we just corrected comprehensive master plan because it just said master plan. It didn't say comprehensive master plan, which is our official terminology. We did remove a couple of things. If you look going on under the PID development standards and preferential factors, again, if we were scoring a project, this is guideline for us. What are the things that would make a project score higher for us? And in the policy that had originally been given to us, number 5 said that preference would be given to projects where an average home price is expected to exceed other surrounding new home community prices. And it's like, that's exactly what we're trying not to have happen. We want, and it says later that we should be giving preferential treatment or scoring to housing that meets the needs for veterans and first responders, teachers, healthcare workers, and service industry employees. So I suggest we remove that number 5. We're not giving preference to expensive houses. We instead are sticking with preference to affordable homes. We remove 6, preference given to projects within the ETJ, because it already says that in the front. So that was just repetitive. We didn't need to say it again. As we went under the under number 10, as we're going under again, the preference, all of those things stayed the same. We put in, instead of enhanced landscaping, we changed that to xeriscaping so that we would score higher or consider higher a project that's going to use low water usage on their plants and landscaping, and added on, including systems for energy efficiency and water conservation. Added water conservation again. These are all things that just help it score higher as we're considering those things. Let's see. Requirements for the development agreement. Again, we simply added comprehensive master plan. And then there was a section in here that talked about CCNs. That's a water certificate of convenience, and we don't have one as a city. We don't actually have a certificate of convenience. So this language made no sense. So our attorney offered us some language that makes a whole lot more sense. And it simply says the proposed PID will be located in the city's existing utility services boundaries or extended boundaries facilitated by the developer. So either the developer is going to have to extend those services, which we would expect, or it's already got services coming to it. So that cleaned up the language, since it made no sense to use a CCN because we don't have one. We had a couple of verbs that were left out in the original draft under collection of PID assessments. It originally said prior to the levy of assessments, the city use its best efforts. So the city shall use its best efforts. I had a good English teacher, grammar teacher, so I thought maybe a verb would be good to put that in there. And then the only other part, we changed the language on this because it was confusing, but it didn't change the meaning of it. Under the maximum PID assessment, it talks about the lesser of, and it made my head explode. So when they explained to me what we were looking for, if you look under the new language, maximum PID assessment, what it says now is that the PID assessment shall be such that when combined with assessments of all overlapping tax entities, it shall not exceed $3, and please fill in, it should say $3 per $100 valuation. And that's the same thing that all this other language sort of said, but it was confusing. So our bond person, and when I asked why, it was that you really can't market. Experience has shown you cannot effectively market the bonds when the tax burden on those residents goes above that price. It's a marketability. How successful is that bond sale going to be? Because they'll consider that. So we just changed the language so it was a little cleaner, and that's the reason for the $3. Because that was my question, why $3? I think everything else, again, pretty much stays the same under the financial limitations and performance standards. We took out, for the initial PID bond issue, a minimum appraised value to lien ratio of 3-to-1 for the proposed PID project. Again, he said there's no need to have it on a per lot basis. We're looking at it, they will look at it in terms of the whole project, not per lot. So it's those were the changes that were made. It was a lot of cleanup, things that didn't make sense, took a few, suggested removing a couple of those items. And these were just all standards to use to score the property. Does it make sense that we enter into a PID with this regarding this project? And these are all things to take into consideration. The financial condition of the developer, what the development looks like, what they work with us on, what the priorities are. So it's pretty standard, and it gives us guidance for any PID we're considering.
If I may, Mayor, I think the pro tem and the mayor worked with Craig Cunningham, our financial advisor, really well. I think these are really good. I think these are really good tools. I think it really does clean up the item. One of the things I will mention, though, is that our attorney, Tim Tuggy, hasn't had a chance to really review all of these changes. Plus, we got some questions and some ideas from some interested parties. And I think we need some time to really look at that. Have this, I mean, talk about as much as you want tonight, and then really have a discussion and then vote on it either at a work session or at the next council meeting. I think it's really important that we just really review all of this. I'm not trying to step on any toes, and you can do what you want, but I think we do need a little time to review it, make sure that this is the policy you want, because it's really hard to go back and amend it again. So I would just caution that we try to look at this, make sure that's the document you want. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Yes.
In the original number 10 on our first draft, you could reference that.
Which section?
Under under development standards and preferential factors.
Yes,
So what is the equivalent of number 10 on the new?
on the new
Draft.
one, that would be, let's see, we can find it in here. I mentioned that the much smaller print on this, I'm just saying. It was easier to see it before. I think that one is now with the renumbering. We took out 5, we took out 6, so it would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think it'll be number 8.
Okay.
Yes. Preference will be given to projects that provide for improvements in the public right-of-way that create new or enhanced public roads and streets, that enhance and create opportunities to redevelop older or underutilized areas of the city, entryways, gateways, landscaping, street trees, specialty lighting, art, decorative, and landscape streets. We did take out fountains.
Okay,
We removed fountains.
I
We are
appreciate that.
not encouraging fountains.
You left specialty lighting into, I mean, did y'all consider dark sky lighting?
We could just it says specialty lighting. What we could certainly put in there would be dark sky. Of course, that's in our ordinance, so it would be required.
And decorative pedestrian lighting, was that removed entirely?
No, it's still in there.
Okay,
Right. Pedestrian lighting, pedestrian safety elements, ADA accessibility.
Okay.
Underground utilities. I think the only thing we modified on there is we took out fountains.
Okay.
As a water conservation issue.
thank you.
I just want to say that, like our city admin mentioned earlier, myself and Mayor Pro Tem Barron talked to our financial advisor, and that's how these changes were made. But that being said, I would be in favor of tabling this. So we have our city admin or our city attorney to review it, and for the citizens to review it so they have a cleaner draft. Any more discussion?
Madam Mayor, I'll move that we table our PID policy for this evening until further review and hopefully bring it up at the next meeting.
Mayor Pro Tem Barron has moved to table the PID policy until the next meeting. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second, and I want to thank everybody for their efforts on this. It took a lot of work, and I thank you, everybody involved.
Councilmember Smith has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Lori, for last minute getting it all nice and red.
Turn on the lights helped.
Julie does it.
We are going to move on to item 3, discussion, consideration, and take action on approval of improvements at the intersection of 3rd Street and Pecan Street. Mr. Escovy?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, citizens. So I had mentioned before that we're looking at additional improvements at the intersection of 3rd and Pecan Street. We had our engineer review this. Byron, do you want to kind of explain what the changes and the improvements you're making or asking to be made?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As Warren mentioned, we had provided a plan to include some proposed improvements there at Pecan and 3rd by adding 2 stop signs, both one in the northbound and then one in the southbound. And then also there's an existing stop sign there at 3rd Street and Pecan near the breezeway or walkway area close to the building. And we're looking to pull that out further into the intersection where it's more visible, because right now when people park, it's not very visible. So we're looking at pulling that out. Also, we're looking at striping off a parking space there to help prevent from people parking there and blocking the stop sign. And then also, if you look at the top part of your sheet here, we're looking at blocking off a couple more parking spaces to help prevent from people parking in front of it and blocking it. However, we would allow like motorcycles to park there, you know, lower vehicle to where it's not blocking the stop sign. Also, we're trying to bring more attention to the stop sign by adding a stop bar and then the word stop. So help, you know, bring it more to their attention, because, you know, what we're trying to do is slow down the traffic in this area, because the northbound and southbound of Pecan Street, you know, once they leave the intersection of 4th and Pecan, you know, the speeds get a little bit higher. So we're just trying to slow down the vehicles in this area, especially there in front of City Hall. So it's pretty straightforward, nothing too complicated. Like I said, we're just adding 2 stop signs and adjusting the existing stop sign, and then adding some pavement markings.
I have one question on as we're doing these things, and this may be more a question for you, Warren, but where are we on striping the other parking spots along here? Are we looking at adding actual, again, for safety and convenience, so it's clear where cars can pull in to park in front of Bensall Park, and if there are parking spaces we can put alongside of Cranberry so that it's clear how many cars can be there and where they can safely be?
So I'm going to answer that in, I guess, 2 parts. There is a general contractor that TxDOT's been working with, and I've been in contact with them. Talked to a couple council members. They also want to make sure that we actually have a plan other than just restriping. We want to make sure we have a plan. So I'm going to be working with Byron to make sure that not only are we striping it, but that the engineer's looking at that so that we don't just restripe and then there's some other issues that will always remain. So the next week or 2, I'll be communicating with both Byron and the council, letting you know where we're at with that contractor. But I'm also looking at the cost too. If it's more than a few $1,000s, I'll let you know, but it should be pretty minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Would this plan include restriping the crosswalks? Because they are faded and hard to see.
We can certainly add that to that. And then currently right now, those aren't really up to standard. I mean, we can pull those to standard per TxDOT standards that we use. So we can incorporate that in there as well. We'll have to remove the existing and then restripe it. and we can certainly do that. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the improvements at the intersection of Third Street and Pecan Street as presented by our city administrator. And also, I guess, give him consideration for possible striping, additional striping.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve the improvements.
Can I just ask that the motion include the placement of the additional stop signs? So not just the improvements, but specifically authorize the placement of the stop signs.
That was
Okay.
my intent, so yes.
Okay.
I'll withdraw and remake the motion. Okay, I'm sorry, Lori. So, okay, I make a motion for the approval to the improvements of the intersection of Third Street and Pecan Street, including striping, markings, stop signs, as directed by our city administrator.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Smith to approve the improvements at the intersection of Third Street and Pecan, including striping, stop signs, and and markings. And Councilmember Barron has seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to item 4, discussion, consideration, and take action on approval of Los Altos subdivision Phase 1 final plat located at 11th Street and Mesquite.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, citizens. I'm going to just give you a little bit of background about the project, and then we'll let Ms. Susan Moore, who's head of the Planning Commission Chair, give the recommendation, and then also the engineer and developer, Mr. Hugo Zondo, PE, is here as well. So if there's questions of him, you can ask him or the chair. So this is Los Altos Phase 1. This area, which is located on Green Lawn and Mesquite and 11th Street and 12th Street. This project was approved as a PDD back in 2020, probably by a previous council, previous administration. But the final plat has come to you, which is really the portion that's on the Mesquite side. So I guess that would be, if you're looking at it, that would be on the east side of the property. And then the second portion will come in later after that. The plans have been approved, but this is for the final plat. So it's a subdivision of 10 single-family lots and 1 open space, and a utility lot on 1.94 acres north of 11th and Mesquite Street. And this action is for final approval. So the analysis is that this plan development was basically served as a preliminary plat. It gave the concept of what you're seeing today as a final plat. Section 1 is the east half of the property of Mesquite. The developer has met all requirements of the final plat. There are a couple of issues. I'm going to go ahead and let Ms. Moore explain the recommendation. Planning Commission's recommendation.
Mayor, City Council. So what this is, we approved in June of 2020, the plans. And the final plat is now just on the Phase 1, which is on the east side of the subdivision. What I want to speak to you about is the sidewalks. There's a difference from the exhibit and what's in the PDD. In the PDD, on page 8, section 2.410, we have 5-foot sidewalks is what we approved, what the planning and zoning approved. But in the exhibit F, it shows 4-foot sidewalks. That's a big deal because our main concern with these sidewalks was safety, because the going up 11th Street and 12th Street It's going to be a busy area. It's going to come from Green Lawn. And so we really had a long conversation to make sure that we had ample, as much safety as we could for our kids going back and forth on these streets. It also says in Exhibit F that there was to be a four-way stop to be considered at 11th Street. We'd also hope that we can have a one-way on 12th Street exiting at Green Lawn, so we wouldn't have the traffic, additional traffic for the school kids. So primarily what I wanted to speak to you about was the 5-foot sidewalks. It's really important that we make as much as we can safety for these kids. And if you looked in the PDD, it actually says that. And it talks about the complete the sidewalk shall be 5 feet in width and comply with the Texas accessibility standards. And so it's really important that we do that, I think. The other issue was in Exhibit F, it talked about this was going to be on the west side of Green Lawn. Of course, it's the east side of Green Lawn, but that's a minor, it's just a typo. So, but that's the main thing that I wanted to speak to you about with the sidewalks.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
was there a reason, or did you say the developers? I'm wondering about the reason about why it started as 5 and now it's 4.
So you can certainly ask the developer, but he's here if you have
Okay,
a question. But I did talk to him today. He did say it's 5-foot sidewalk throughout. So that's,
Okay.
and these plans actually got approved by our previous engineer, not by our Arduris. I apologize for that, but this has been kind of a long time going. And so we're kind of in between engineers, in between administrations. But my understanding is it's 5 foot and all the other issues have been addressed.
And Ms. Moore also mentioned the stop signs. And is that going to be addressed?
Hugo, can you address that, please? Again, I wasn't here for the PDD when it was first approved. I read it a couple of times, but I'm still not 100% on all those nuances. So,
Thank you, Commissioner or Council, for your time. My name is Hugo Elizondo. I'm one of the owners and the developer and the engineer on this project. And my apologies for the discrepancy in the PDD. The narrative did describe a 4-foot width for the sidewalk. I mean, a 5-foot width. The exhibit actually called out a 4-foot, but the plans that we submit show a 5-foot, and it will be a 5-foot sidewalk. The other apparent discrepancy, as I pointed out to Warren, it actually describes the location of the existing manhole that we're tying into, and it is west of Green Lawn. So that's not really a discrepancy. As far as a stop sign, those are not expensive compared to the overall cost of the project. So if the city wishes to add a stop sign at 11th or any type of other signage, we'll be glad to accommodate.
Does the sidewalk, excuse me, go right out to the curb? Is there any green
Yeah,
area
we try
between?
we try to make it meander, especially on the 12th Street side because of the large trees near Mesquite. So it meanders away from Mesquite, away from the existing edge along 12th, and then it gets closer as we proceed to the west. On 11th Street, that sidewalk is generally on a pretty true assignment. If you guys have been there, there's a PEC has set their pole line, and basically we'll be behind the pole line there. There's an old fence row of trees that we're trying to salvage. Some of those are hackberries, they'll come out, but we have a little drainage channel behind the trees. So it'll be away from the street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to answer any other questions you may have.
Go ahead.
And I'd like to just add, if that wasn't in the plans, and I think he's right, it wasn't, then we'll need to have Byron look at that, engineer it, and then we'll bring it back to you as putting the stop sign there. I understand that that may be something you want, but if that's not in the plans, then we need to actually review that.
So he needs to revise and resubmit.
No, the plans have already been approved. If we want a stop sign there, then the city will need to review it, bring it back to you like we just did with Third Street. So city will coordinate with school district to consider installation of a four-way stop. So, right, so the city of Blanco will have to coordinate with the school district, not the developer. So we will do that.
Is there a motion?
I guess I'm confused. I'm just gonna be honest with you at this point. What? No, I'm not, this is not my motion, no. I'm sorry. The plat that is submitted, when we approve it and it shows a 4-foot walk and we approve it, and you're referencing it is shown on another document, is that what you're saying?
On the construction drawings, correct? Yeah. Document. By which
But this is the plat that's gonna be filed, correct?
drawing.
Well, wouldn't it be appropriate for this plat to match the as-built drawings?
The plat will reference different side.
So let me go ahead and clean this up. I apologize. So part of the issue is when the planning commission met and they give you a recommendation, they have to do it based on the information they're given. And part of it was the applicant was not able to be there at the meeting. So there was a little bit of confusion. We're trying to clear that up here. Normally that doesn't happen. So on the plat, just to let you know, on a plat, it is a subdivision of property. It doesn't show sidewalks. When there was this discrepancy, we didn't know how to answer it. I just said, let's put this in a note that it shall be a 5-foot sidewalk. The plans, which were already approved, show a 5-foot sidewalk. Wouldn't show up in the plat. It'd only show up in the plans. So there's a 5-foot sidewalk. And then that's the one issue. The applicant just told you that they're tying to a manhole west of Green Lawn, and that resolves the other issue. And then we just determined that a 4-way stop will be coordinated between the city and the school district. And so that's going to be the next step of making sure we provide safety.
So if we approve the plat as submitted,
It meets all the requirements of the PDD, so you're fine with approving it.
and then those other items will be addressed through the construction document.
So the construction plans already approved show the 5-foot sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay.
And there is no issue
Can
with
be added
the manhole.
All right.
But then the 4-way stop will be handled at a separate time by the city and the school district.
Thank you. I'm clear.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, well, I move that we approve the Los Altos subdivision Phase 1 final plat located at 11th Street and Mesquite.
Mayor Pro Tem Barron has moved to approve the Los Altos subdivision Phase 1 final plat located at 11th Street and Mesquite. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Smith has seconded. Discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 5, discussion, consideration, and take action on approval of Resolution 2022 R0XX, authorizing the creation of a Highway 281 task force and the development of a related draft communications, outreach, and engagement strategy and plan.
Mayor, if you'll allow me, I'll just give a little bit of background to why we're here. So back in February, the mayor had reached out to several organizations, including TxDOT, to get some answers about what was happening with the plans. And she was able to get a meeting, set up a Teams meeting with myself and herself and a couple other members to actually discuss these issues with TxDOT. We found out, of course, we've been hearing rumors for a long time, but we've actually found out that the actual plans looked at taking what's now a 2 and 4 lane highway and expanding that to 6, and then basically north and south of the highway. So in getting more information from TxDOT, then we were able to get them to come here to present some information to the city. That, of course, created more questions than maybe answers. And I think looking at creating a task force, one that would be inclusive of a business community, different stakeholders, would be something that the mayor would govern, but would help really include everybody. I think that's kind of the background, so that we can also start advising TxDOT, getting more information for them, and then also really informing the public and having hopefully a good outcome on this. So I think that's kind of the background. So that's my say. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I have a question about it, and that is just, my question is about if all of the council is appointed to this task force, doesn't that violate open meetings in some way?
No, ma'am, it does not.
Okay,
If the task force were to have a public meetings, then it would be posted as an open meeting like you are now. You would just be seated as, you would post a meeting with respect to the task force and a quorum is present. So
and
it
there
would be
wouldn't be
open to
any,
the public. In fact, your initial membership on the task force ensures even greater transparency, because your meetings will be public, will be posted for public participation. And obviously, this resolution was drafted with the concept that this is just the initial membership of the task force.
right,
I know the mayor and other members of council have envisioning a much larger task force
right,
than just members of council, but you got to start somewhere.
right.
I would like to add also and supplement city administrator's narrative that in this, there was a Teams meeting that Mr. Escovy mentioned. And during that meeting, as a result of the inquiries made by Mayor Pro Tem and the mayor, TxDOT committed to include in this big feasibility study they're doing, to include feasibility study of a relief route. That was not in their original feasibility study plans. It is now. So just for the record.
Thank you. So all of the meetings of the task force will then be public meetings, in other words? Because, okay,
Council is present, yes.
right. Because on the other task force that I'm on, there's meetings that are not public meetings. So that was that's why it was unclear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this resolution, as it is presented, it says the task force shall initially be chaired by the mayor and shall be composed of all members of city council, the city administrator, city attorney, city engineer, and other individual representatives of community stakeholders as council may appoint. And I would recommend adding the city chief, police chief as well to that.
More meetings, chief.
Lucky you.
Uh-huh.
Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we adopt the resolution number 2022-R-0XX, resolution authorizing the creation of a Highway 281 task force and the development of a related draft communications outreach and engagement strategy and plan amended to include the Blanco County Police Chief in the original participants.
Mayor Pro Tem Barron has moved to approve the resolution 2022 R0XX authorizing the creation of a Highway 281 task force with the inclusion of the police chief on the task force. Is there a second? Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Any further discussion? I just have one more note in the community stakeholders. I really would like to encourage us to contact the chamber and make sure that we are working with the chamber as one of those members. It's just another idea.
Yes, and so I don't know if you want to limit specific stakeholders, but develop in its entire community and stakeholders, including, you want to amend that language, including, but not limited to, including the Blanco Chamber of Commerce and the Historic Commission, representatives from the Historic Commission, and others.
Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to executive session. Item 1, Texas Government Code, Section 551071, Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, and 551072, to wit, discussion with legal counsel to obtain legal advice related to possible reclaimed water contract between City and Chamacho Mio Investments LLC. Item 2, Texas Government Code, Section 551071, 551072, and Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, and confer with City Attorney regarding proposed Public Improvement District, Palamaco, Inc. Item 3, Texas Government Code, Section 551071, 551072, and Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct. Confer with City Attorney regarding Far Paradise Utility Easement Agreement. Please keep it down. We're still in our meeting. Item 4, Texas Government Code, Section 551071, and Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, and 551072, confer with City Attorney regarding Canyon Lake Water SC water valuation with Westwater, City's interest and undivided interest. Item 5, Texas Government Code, Section 551071, and Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, and 551072, confer with City Attorney regarding city property evaluations at Blanco Vista Estates Lot 3 and 202 Cherry Street. Item 6, Texas Government Code, Section 551071, Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, to wit, discussion with legal counsel to obtain legal advice related to appeal of vested rights determination, Virginia's. Item 7, Texas Government Code, Section 551071, Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, to wit, discussion with legal counsel to negotiate water contract. And item 8, Texas Government Code, Section 551074, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of city administrator. So at 7:23, we are adjourned into executive session.